and recorded. If you're joining on the webinar, the chat feature will be open for comments after the presentation and board questions, but everyone will have an opportunity to give their comments for the presentation. So just a quick recap, update where we are in this process. Last month, we went through the revenue side. Brief summary of that is the Act 1 index is 4%, although the key take-home message, we're not going to realize the full 4%, largely due to reassessments of large commercial properties. So our revenues are going to come in closer to 3 than closer to 4%. So today, as we've done in past years, we're going to start going through the expenditure side. Today, we're going to focus on the non-instructional expenditures, which is a relatively small part of the total budget. The instructional expenditures will be featured at the next meeting on April 4th. So I think at this point, we'll turn it over to Mr. Orlando to start the presentation.
Sure. Before we get started on the budget presentation, I wanted to make a clarification from the board meeting the other night on the statement on the walk settlement agreement. There was a question regarding the calculations. I'm just going to spend just a couple minutes just walking through the calculation real quick. So the way the calculation is, and as Dr. Mussolini stated on Monday, once the audit report is accepted and presented to the board, that establishes the variance between the budget and the actual expenditures and revenues for the fiscal year ending 6/30/2024. So if you look at the top line, you have your actual revenues minus your budgeted revenues. So they exceeded by $652,536. And then you have to go to the expense side. So our actual expenditures, you can see the budget was $317 million. We came in around $315 million, and we had a positive variance of $2,162,712. That created a positive variance. There's no budgetary reserves, so that number is zero. So the total variance is $2,815,248. The next part of the calculation is there's a 2% allowance, and that is basically taking the actual expenditures, the $315,313,961 times 2%. That equals the $6,306,729. When the total variance minus the allowance presents a excess revenue of a negative $3,491,031. So in that case, there is no tax credit. That's why it's a zero. So I just want to clarify that. So there was a question about that at the last meeting. Okay, I think we can move on to the presentation. Okay, so as There we go. As Mr. Recchi mentioned, today we're going to concentrate on or talk about the non-instructional support. Next slide, Lynn. There we are. Back up one. So we're talking about the non-instructional support programs and services. That's what we're going to concentrate on today. So the budget itself is our educational financing plan for the children of Lower Merion School District and help support our extensive curriculum and learning community. The budget follows the chart of accounts, which is established by the Department of Education and the Comptroller's Office. So you'll see that the function object, which we'll go through shortly. We're going to highlight some of the major drivers. We do have various administrators here that will talk about their specific departments and dive a little bit deeper into that, and also look at the challenges that we've had in this budget process. As far as the anticipated salaries and benefits, we will talk about that at the next meeting in more detail. So we're going to concentrate on the 300 object versus the 900 object, and strictly we're just going to talk about the non-instructional side. We'll talk about the 300 and 900 instructional at the next meeting with that. So let's look at the budget, where we're at this point in time. So you can see on the left-hand side, we have the functions broken out. You can see the 1,000s, which we'll talk about next time. And then we have the 2,000 support services for the non-instructional. So we'll talk about the 2,300, the 2,500, the 26, the 27, the 29, the 28, also the 3,300 function, and then the 5,000 functions today. And all the others will be discussed at the next meeting. So what we've done is, so right now, where we're at in the process, our expenditures right now are $339,176,904. And you can see the breakout, over 58% roughly is instructional. And then you can see how we have color-coded all the support, which is the 2,000, about 31%. The non-instructional operations, which is the 3,000 series, is 2%. And then everything in the 5,000 series is 9%. So I just want to make sure, so you can see that. So we are continuing to refine the budget. We're making adjustments and finding efficiencies to align our expenditures with the revenues. And this is the same we've doing every year in prior years. And it's part of the budget process. As we get updated information, we'll keep refining the budget. This is where we're at this point in time. Second part of the account structure is the object. So you can see on the left-hand side, we have broken out all the various objects. Again, we're concentrating today on 300 versus 900. And you can see, as in the past, we're around that 76, 77%, which basically is in line with what we've done in the past as far as percentage-wise. So you can see what that breakout is for that series. So we're concentrating on that 23%, which is other, but please note in that 23%, probably less than 15%, maybe we have some control over, because there's still a lot of mandated programs in there for special ed and so forth that are in there. We have obligations for debt service payments and so forth. So it's, that 23%, a lot of it is out of our control. Very, very small portion of that pie is with that. So, and as we stated, as Mr. Rickey mentioned before, we talked about the challenging budget that we have. So we are seeing our revenues. We had a lengthy discussion last meeting about how that assessed value is declining. So we're not really reaping that 4%. It's somewhere, less than, 3 or 4%, less than 3% when you take all the numbers in consideration. So we have a very tight budget. We're going to closely have to monitor this upcoming year to make sure we stay within our spending. And so we don't anticipate a very limited, probably, surplus than we've had in the past. So, but most of it is no really outliers. Most of the percentage, if you look at last year's chart, almost pretty much the same percentage-wise. So the first department we're going to talk about, our function, is the 2600. This is the facilities and operations. Mr. Lil and Mr. Pitts are here to kind of walk you through those objects which make up the, besides their salaries and benefits. I'll turn over to Mr. Lil.
Thank you. Good morning. And before we move forward with the next several slides, Mr. Pitts will present the 2600, which is facilities and operations, and then also you'll see Mr. Vilsons is at the table prepared to do transportation, also known as 2700. I'm going to go off script a moment and go outside of some of the budget numbers for a moment. One of the things I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge is a soon retirement. We have a gentleman, Dennis Witt, retiring after 23 years of service as our Director of School Safety and Security, 23 very dedicated years, and he will be missed, but we're wishing him well in his future endeavors. Also today, I wanted to introduce Jen Anderson, who's sitting there in the second row. She recently joined the facilities department about 3 months ago, came from Ridley School District, came from their facilities department. Jen's becoming familiarized with Lower Merion's systems and people. And also she was assisting with some of the data collection that we did, putting these presentations together. And I asked her to join us for two purposes. One, to give her the opportunity to be introduced, and second, to give her the opportunity to see the process, if you will. So at this point, I'll let Mr. Pitts go forward with the 2600 facilities and operation numbers.
Good morning. On the screen, you'll see the major object codes. I'm just going to highlight a few of the major players in these object codes before we get into the details of the numbers. Under professional services, that primarily is our security services and monitoring, as well as architectural engineer and some inspection services. 400, building maintenance repair, That's cleaning, repairs, rentals, exterminators, trash, all those things that keep our buildings functional and clean. General services is an area I'll talk about in the numbers. It's one of the challenges. We are estimating the insurance cost to go up this year. Under 600, another major portion, about a third of that is supplies, and the other 2/3 is energy, both natural gas and electricity. And 700 this year is going to be a smaller amount. We don't anticipate a lot of equipment needs, but that is basically for some of our capital equipment. Next slide, please. Looking at the screen, I will start with the pie charts on the bottom, where the district is about 3/4 of the budget is salary and benefits. Because we deal in more tangible things like supplies and energy, our portion of the budget for labor is only about 2/3. Moving over to the colorful pie chart, I'll just go counterclockwise around there. Supplies is a major portion of our budget. The green, the other services, that's the portion that is primarily insurance. Again, that's a big slice of what goes into things. Property services, that's the 400, and professional services is the 300. And again, the 700s and 800s for our budget are a very small slice of the pie. Going down through the lines, I know we're going to talk about personnel at a future point, but I just want to point out, because of retirements and some realignment in the budget, the increase on salary and benefits is only 1-2% for the operations department, which is very good cost control. We lose people, that hurts. We lose a lot of experience, but it helps us budgetary-wise. Going down through the lines, the 300s and 400s are pretty steady. You'll notice the 500, the other services, that's the insurance, and that's going up 12%. Supplies, we're subject to all the vagaries of inflation just like everyone else, but we're trying to keep that to about 3.5% increase. Property service, we've gone down from the previous budget. As I said, we're not going to buy a lot of equipment, or we don't anticipate a lot of equipment needs this coming year. And the 800, our dues and fees, usually is a small portion. Overall, the other objects total, we're looking at a 3.5% increase. So that's kind of in line with inflation and everything else. But if you roll in the savings we had from personnel, our net operations budget is only going up 2%. So we are doing our best to maintain cost controls. I'd like to thank in advance for the board's support of not just the operations department budget, but the overall budget to keep the district in a safe and clean environment and help support our students. And subject to your questions, I will turn it over to Mr. Wilsons. But if you have questions, I'm happy to answer.
Kim, yeah.
Good morning, and thank you. I am just curious, you referenced that the insurance has gone up 12%. Can you give us the dollar amount roughly of what that means?
So what that means is, in general, I think about 120,000. I have to look at it.
120,000 additional or?
Additional.
Whoa.
And this is anticipated. We do not have the final insurance numbers.
Yeah, so the way it works is basically we have a estimated budget at this point in time. We have to go out to market, which will happen this spring. So typically the number will come down, at least historically it has, but they just don't know what the trends are in the insurance industry. So that's basically where we're at right now. Once we get the final numbers in, hopefully we'll get them in time for the budget. Then you'll see that number come down in the budget, but that's kind of where it's at right now. It's just basically what the market is till we go out to market. So we'll start filling out the applications and get that takes quite a time. Our insurance broker will go out to various markets and we'll get the final cost.
I didn't realize, is that typical to renegotiate, redo that every year?
Yeah, so you have to go out.
Is there any advantage to getting like a multi-year?
No, they don't do that. So you have to, based upon like your experience, your claims, and application, they look at all your financials, all that stuff. So it's every year they go through all that. So Ms. Pringle and I have to go through with some of the administrators, put down all the different, I mean, it's a lengthy, and we have numerous policies. So again, it's just like your property, you got your general liability, you got errors and omissions, you have boiler insurance, we have cyber insurance. So there's like 10 different policies that we have to go through every year and get our information. Because we go out to market, sometimes, you know, we can go out to different providers, different, I call providers, underwriters, so to speak, with different companies, we can get better deals. So sometimes that's the best way to go. And a lot of them don't want to lock into a multi-year because the market changes so much and so forth. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I have additional question to that. I'm just wondering, this is something that's all school districts are going to be facing this year as an increase like this. So I'm wondering, is there any type of ever kind of grouping together as a consortium to try and buy an insurance as a group as opposed to each district alone?
No, because every district is unique as what their limits are and so forth. So we don't all have the same insurance policies. So we've talked about it, but just everybody's all over the arena with different policies and different limits and what coverages. And some people don't have this insurance, but we have this insurance and different excess umbrella policies, so it's all over the place. So we don't have, it's kind of different when you do like a diesel fuel bid. All right, everybody's getting diesel fuel, everybody's getting gasoline, but you go to insurance, the policies are all different.
Yeah, that makes it
They're all different,
complicated.
yeah, so it's hard for us to do that
Now,
consortium-wide.
As a governmental entity, can you do self-insurance or are any, and if you are any districts self-insured? And are there benefits to that?
Self-insure for which, so we do self-insurance, some of our insurance, like healthcare and dental, we do self-insured, our workers' comp is self-insured. Property and casualty or general liability, I don't think you have that ability to do that. I mean, particularly if you get a case and you're self-insured, you can get a case that could be multi-million dollars. That's why we have excess umbrella policies and so forth to cover that. So it'd be, I think, a very risky situation to do based upon what I've seen here in the 15 years I've been here. There's been a lot of different litigation matters, and I think insurance is the way to go.
Yeah, and depending on how the policies go up, you got to measure the risk to benefit. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Was any on Shayna or Curry?
I had a question. I'm just wondering about the savings in the personnel department and if that is largely attributed to the fact that our school safety officer or director, is retiring. And if when we inevitably replace that person shortly, I hope, if that savings will be derealized because we now have another high-ranking employee to pay salary and benefits for.
So,
Ms. Kalish, I apologize, it's Jim Lill. Are you referring specifically to the fact that I stated Mr. Witt was retiring?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're currently interviewing for a school safety and security coordinator. So there's no net increase in personnel. It's basically the same number of Act 93 administrators, both before and after Mr. Witt's departure. We're making it pretty much a net zero, if you will, in terms of FTEs.
Then where's the personnel savings coming from?
so we've basically turned over 4 of our mechanics that were 25 years and longer. Several of our custodians have retired. Some of our lead custodians will be losing 2 very key players at both of our high schools this summer. And we are going people that are on the top of the scale as well as longevity increases down to being replaced with people that are at the bottom of the scale and working their way up.
Okay, so we're not losing anybody or gaining anybody. We're just basically taking a lot of positions and starting at the beginning of the salary schedule. That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, if nothing else, let's proceed.
Good morning. I usually call this English as a second language part of a budget presentation. First, I would like to thank the board and district administration for all your ongoing support for transportation programs and for realizing that we're transporting the world's most precious cargo. So we're trying to run safe but efficient transportation services. In our 300s professional services, that's mostly is alcohol and drug testing. Our drivers are subject to DOT, random drug testing. Then we have a pre-employment, return to duty drug testing, post-accident drug testing, and also additionally, district has a policy for annual drug testing every driver at least once a year, because random will not capture every driver. 400s are mostly outside repairs. We can't, there are work that we're not able to do in our shop, and a lot of it is body work on the buses and paint. We don't have that capability. Tire recap on buses. Rear tires can be recapped, so they strip it and put a new tire tread on it. It's a lot cheaper to do that way, but only rear wheels are allowed to be done that way. But so we use, there is a cost to tire recapping. Towing, our buses unfortunately break down sometimes, we have to tow them. And also mechanics uniforms. 500s is our contracted carriers, that is transportation for out-of-district special needs placements, homeless students, foster care students, and some non-pub schools that have 1 or 2 kids attending, and they kind of don't fit in our shuttle transfer system. 600s are parts for vehicles, parts for fueling stations, parts, supplies for office, also fuel. We have still natural gas, diesel, and gasoline, and software. As you know, that if you have a car and it's relatively new, now we can't replace the brakes without then hooking into the software and calibrating them. Same with transmission, same as everything. So we have to carry different type of diagnostic software for our drivers. And also we use routing software, GPS, and all that stuff. So that's an overview of the main drivers of our budget. Next slide, please. I'm not gonna go through all the numbers. It's just you can see that salary and benefits are like pie charts where salary benefits are 70%, and the other services are 77%, which is the contracted services. Coincidentally, that's how I like to cut pies for myself. The gray and green is my size of a pie. So if you have any questions, I'm open.
So the one obvious outlier in the projected budget going forward that's out of whack with everything else is the contracted services. There's a very large increase. Can you explain what's driving that?
Sure. That is an object that I really have a very limited control over it because it's IEP driven. When we get students, we have to transport them. So there is multiple factors that contributing to that. Increase in students in wheelchairs. I mean, in 22-23 we had 5. Now we have 13 students in the wheelchairs. Single transport students that can go, have to be transported by themselves. It jumped from 23-24 from 6 to 10. And that means cost of the vehicle could be around $70,000 a year, and then you add an aid that is $150, $180 a day. So few kids can trigger pretty big changes in that budget. So we also increased our number of homeless and foster students. I know there's a McKinney-Vento Act that requires us to transport homeless students that resided in our district. They may be somewhere else outside of district. There's no limit on miles. We have to bring them. If they have multiple kids going to different grades, we may have to send 2 or 3 vehicles to get them to elementary, then to middle school, then to high school. That number has increased from 17 to 29. So I didn't and previous year increased by 6 students. So it's increased more than double. And really, there is no predictability factor for that. It's kind of sign of the times. And also the contractors' costs going up, as you know, like price of used vehicles have jumped like 45%. Some of the wheelchairs, one of our contractors stopped providing us with wheelchair vehicles, so we had to use another contractor that is more expensive that has wheelchair vehicles. And none of it, we have to transport these students. We have to start transportation relatively fast because that's their education time that they're losing. So that's where the unpredictability is. I've tried to get a lot better at next year's estimate, but it does increase. That's a significant increase.
Yeah, and it looks like that, there's oscillation each year, but going back to 4 or 5 years on here, the trend is clearly up
Yes.
quite a lot. So these are probably not one-off things, but a general trend, and these are going to be durable expenses that need to be planned for going forward as well at a pretty steep clip. Okay. Because it was only 2 million in '22.
Yeah.
And now we're up to, over 5. So.
Yeah, and the number of students, number of runs increased. In like '22, we had like 100, what we call trips, 103 trips, which is like one trip from home to school, one trip back. Now in '24, '25, we are already up to 139 trips, and it still can grow. So it's growing. It's contractors' increases are over the last 2 years. They went up anywhere from 14%, anywhere from 8 to 14%.
I guess only from a board sort of governance question, at some point, does it become more cost effective for us to purchase whatever additional vehicles and things we need rather than contracting it out? Like, where's that inflection point? I'm sure you guys are keeping an eye on that, but
yes,
that's our job. Right?
Our first biggest thing is where we would park those vehicles. They are, so yeah, so it would have to be resolved. And then with there may be some efficiencies, but we would have to find a place to park, build something which would actually probably may cost a lot.
Yeah,
significantly.
and find drivers, we probably have to add additional mechanics because more vehicles, so.
No, I totally get it. I'm not
Yeah.
pushing it. I'm just
No,
saying,
no.
at some point, it would, if this keeps going up, there's a point at which,
Yeah,
oh, no.
but as Mr. Wilson says, we have no
We're
place
not
to
there.
park them. That's a whole nother.
Hi, guys, it's Curry. Sorry. Just to add to it, this is not a Lower Merion trend. This is a national trend. We're seeing this across the board. Just for context for everyone, so when Todd was talking about those incremental numbers going up and keeps coming up, we're seeing this across the entire country. Buses, transportation, vehicles, bus drivers, these are limited supplies. So the costs are going up and up. And who knows with the next round of national changes, how that's going to be affected as well. Just wanted to add that context.
Thank you. That's a good point because contractors, just like we struggle with driver staffing contractors too, so they have raised their rates to attract the drivers to NAID.
All right, thanks. Let's proceed.
Can I jump in real quick for one
Oh,
sec?
sorry, Shannon. Yep.
So, Mr. Vilsons, I just wanted to check in and see how we're doing with some of the things we talk about in terms of long-term expenditures in your department. So how we're doing on our bus replacements and what that expenditure is going to look like, and how we're doing in terms of fully staffing our bus driver corps.
I'll answer the bus driver staffing. The buses will be in a capital budget. We will probably be presenting
Yeah,
some
so,
information.
so the buses being the capital project, and then when we talk about personnel, next meeting is when we can talk more detail about the driver situation, if that's okay with you.
Apologies, I
No
will
worries.
be sure to ask again.
Okay.
Hi, sorry. I was intrigued by what you were talking about the tires and that, about you can recap them to save money. Can you move the tires from the front of the vehicle to the back of the vehicle?
No.
Or do you have to keep?
No, at that point, no. And it's school buses have four tires on the back of a bus, actually. There's double wheels. So that's why it's recap allowed, because it can, if one fails, it's still secure to drive it, but front has only one wheel on each side.
Okay. And also the TransFinder is the routing program you use, right?
Yes.
Or the database. How's that going, and is it working well now? You've had it going for now a couple of years?
Yeah, we've been using it. It's like with every software, and our district is very complex with transportation arrangements. You know, we're not just home to school and back. We do all kind of things, and some of these things don't fit in very well, but we've been working with a TransFinder, and they are working with us to adjust some of the things that maybe they didn't think of other districts. For example, like nationally, TransFinder never realized how many different calendars we have to keep. We have 140 schools that we go to, so our schools and then all the other schools, and they all have a different calendars. We have to collect them and track them, and that part of the software wasn't working great, but we have adapted it a lot, made it better now.
It's good to hear that they're working with you.
Yes,
Appreciate it. Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
All right, let's proceed with the
you.
next section. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to actually skip 2 slides. Mr. Catalano is on his way. He got tied up in a situation, so I'm going to go over to these other slides, and then we'll come back to the 2800. So on this slide here, there's 3 other functions that we'll talk about. Administration, which is the 2300, the 25, which is the finance and business and other services. So you can see in the 2300 is about $1.7 million from the 3 to the 800s. The bulk of that 300 category, it's our legal fees, it's our auditing fees, tax collector services, what make up the bulk of that money there. And then on the 400 object, a lot of that is just rentals and copier maintenance is what is in the 400 objects. In the 500, the 153,000 is for advertising, printing and postage. Our bond insurance for our tax collectors is under that 2,300. And then under the supplies, a lot of that just is our general supplies and tech supplies for the support services. And the 800, that is our monies we have for any type of claims that we have, any type of dues and fees in the 2,300, which would be superintendent, the school board, and so forth under the 2,300. When we get to the 2,500, there's about $142,000. The 300 object is for our actuarial services that we need under Government Accounting Standard Board Pronouncement 75 that we have to have done for that compliance. We have some copier maintenance costs there. We house the main copiers in this building, so that's charged under that. Under the 500 object, there's some that's more like travel and some other services that are under the 500 services. The 600, most of that is our software programs we have. We have our finance program and also our HR module in there that is under that. And then 800 is most of our paying agents for our debt service that come out of that and some dues and fees. Under the 2,900, that 160,000 represents, if you remember back in, I believe it was in February, you approved the MCIU General Services budget. That makes up our contribution that is right now anticipated for the upcoming year. So that is our those categories. So I guess we can go back to the 2,800. I'll go through some of the smaller accounts, and then I guess at the end we'll try to finish up with the IT. So under the 2,800, the bulk of this is the information technology department. There are some other smaller categories, and I'll just highlight real quick under the 2,800. There are, the human resources is under that department, under that category, the 2,800. So there are numerous software programs that are included in there for all our, if you remember, our Chronos, our time counting, our ASOP, our Talent Ed for hiring and evaluations, also our Ben Express for our benefit monitoring and software are under there. And then also under the 500, advertising. Remember, we have a lot of advertisements that go out for positions, so they have a budget for that. And then our contracted services, we have a lot in there doing with any type of arbitrators that we need. We also have our flex spending service that we have under that, and any type of random drug testing or any type of independent medical examinations come under that also. And then the other part in there is our professional development. So we have for our non-instructional certified and our staff professional development for non-certified employees. So that'd be anywhere from administration and also like our secretaries and other members of LMEA, operations and staff nurses. There's professional development under that 2,800 also. So the bulk of it. There is some funds put together for a little bit of strategic plan and some research in there, not a lot, but there's some funds in for that also. So that's outside the information technology department that makes up the 2,800 department. And yeah, we'll move on to the other two and then come back. So under the 3,300 services is the community services. So that's really two things. One is our crossing guards and also our community pool. So that's the services for that. So we have IM Pool does the maintenance and the safety guards and manages the pool for us. And then we have Lower Merion Township and Narberth Borough, where we split the cost of the crossing guards. And we have some monies in there just for any type of repairs or supplies we need for the pool. And again, that varies from year to year. And then we're under the 5,000 object. The bulk of that is our debt service that is under there. Any type of fund transfers, any type of leases under Government Accounting Standard Board 87. Also included in that is our senior citizen rebate program, as well as our fire and the EMT rebates that the board approved a couple years ago is included under that 5,000 function.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What is the balance looking like on versus how much money we take in from dues on the pool versus how much money we spend in terms of lifeguards and management and maintenance to upkeep the pool as a community service?
The pool, well, there's a couple different things there. So you have a couple different, I have to find the breakout, but you have LMAC, which pays a fee also, which offsets some of the costs of the crossing guards and so forth. Then we have community members that pay a membership also. If you're a senior citizen, I think it's over 62. Don't quote me on that, but I forget what that is, but they go for free. And then we have different family ones. So the bulk of our money that comes in is through like LMAC. We get around, I don't know, 50, 60 grand. So LMAC pays like 48,000, I think, roughly. So you get maybe 10 grand or less in from the membership. I can't give it the breakout because our pool, honestly, we have our own PE classes that use the pool. We have our swimming teams use the pool. We have the diving team use the pool. We have LMAC that use the pool with the community. So it's hard for me to kind of break out the amount of hours. I know, Jim, it's open, from September through June, and it's pretty well.
What I was trying to just get at and say for the community is that when we operate the pool for community use, that is effectively a community service that is largely provided by by the district to the community that wants to use the pool rather than some sort of money-making scheme. That we
Correct.
actually make
It's
any
not,
kind of profit.
what we charge is very minimal, and doesn't cover our fees, so, and that, we historically have done that.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, so a couple of questions I had. I wondered under 2,500, the 500, when you mentioned travel, whose travel is that? Is that for everybody or?
That's not, so included in that also is printing and other things that we do for the district. So travel would just be like, really, it's minimal. It's like if you travel around the district or something like that to get reimbursed. So it's not, we don't travel that much. It's more just for like printing and costs we have to get, and postage also is the big thing that's in that category.
Okay.
So I misspoke, but it's mostly the postage, which keeps going up.
Okay, thanks. And I also had a question about, I guess, 500 again in IT and the one-to-one device insurance. Is that fully covered by the fees that the families pay for the insurance?
So the insurance, we have two things. One is you have families that pay the insurance, and we have free and reduced, which do not pay. In addition to that, we also have loaner laptops that basically, we cover for it. So, I mean, I know what you say by paying, they pay $70, and hopefully if they don't use anymore, that, it's fine. There's a $100 deductible. If something gets broken, the parents have to pay on top of that. But it's not a money generator because, I don't know what we get in from the students, but there's X hundreds of computers that we also insure that are loaners that, we pay. So we actually budget money to pay for some of the insurance.
Okay, so it's more,
loaners,
yeah.
correct.
And I remember Mr. Fraser from a couple of years ago mentioned how much it costs every time somebody brings in a broken computer in labor to figure out what's
Correct.
wrong with it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Catalano, who's going to go over the IT budget.
Sorry, Curry, real quick. I just wanted to add context for everybody that we are talking about the cost of to the district when people use the buildings, use the services. That is, if you're interested in that conversation, we are discussing that in policy. So I just wanted to connect the budget to the policy discussion, and looking at that, I believe is coming up in the next couple of months in the policy meeting. So just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. These are our information technology expenditures. Out of 300 is our outsourcing services. This is for our cybersecurity, some of our backup, our supplemental staff to help us with our deployment over the summer, and for CrowdStrike for our cybersecurity retainer, which we then can use to be proactive for cybersecurity training, red team, blue team, things of that nature. 400 is for our hardware maintenance, for our warranty to keep up our data center and our infrastructure, our HVAC to keep everything cool, and our maintenance and SmartNet for our networking infrastructure. 500 is for our insurance to maintain the devices, as Vic just stated. 500 is our telecom for our fiber optic network. That's our main data pipe to support the students, staff, and kids. And then School Messenger for communications. For 600 is for our one-to-one devices for all of our staff, school, and students, one-to-one for iPads in grades K1, and then we have Chromebooks at our 2 to 7 level, and then from 8 to 12 we have our MacBooks that we give our students and our staff. And then finally under 600 we have our other software, which is our Microsoft, our Office 365, for our infrastructure work center packages, PowerSchool for our SIS, our eFinance, ClassLink to maintain all of our applications, and then our antivirus package. We're phasing out Zoom this year to save a little bit of money, and we're going to transition over to Teams.
I just was, this is a pretty broad question. I'm just wondering, as you're bringing your experience in from other districts, are there any things that you noted that could be some cost-saving measures in this area?
Andrew and I and Vic have been looking over that to see ways where we could try to centralize things and make things more efficient. I've only been here 4 months now, but we've been going over all these things and see how we could possibly consolidate things. I came in where this budget was already pretty much done, but if things we're looking for next year to potentially save money, yes.
I had a question about rolling off Zoom. Will that be also for board meetings? I'm just thinking in terms of onboarding our entire community into using a new structure and how that would function.
No, I'm sorry for the confusion there. There are two different things. Zoom for board meetings, webinars, that will remain the same. This would be for the teachers in the event of an inclement weather day and for internal communications. The board communication through Zoom, all of that will, there are two different packages. I'm sorry for the confusion. That will remain completely the same.
Perfect, thank you.
Let's see. So I think that concludes the non-instructional and support services for today. We do have next meeting, which is on the 4th. That's we'll talk about staffing and personnel, and we'll talk about the instructional programs and student services that we talked about. So it'll be the 1,000s and then some of the 2,000s and the student activities in the 3,000 we talked at the next meeting on the 4th. And then we do have at the April 28th meeting, the proposed final budget will have to be presented and approved by the board. On their next meeting, that is February 16th, I'm sorry, May 15th, we'll have to talk about policy 620 with our reserves, fund balance, and any type of capital transfer. We'll talk about that. And then in June meeting would be the final budget approval for the 25-26 budget. So if there are any other questions,
Okay, thanks. Any questions on the chat or any other board members with questions?
Sorry, I do have one question. I apologize,
sure.
a little slow today. Around the percentages, so it showed in the slide, I think it was slide 5, of the percentages around staff is 77%. And I did hear a community comment like a couple weeks ago or a week ago that shared that percentage has drastically grown over the last few years. And you don't have a comparable there, Vic, but could Vic, and I know Todd, you dived into this math too. For most districts, it's around, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's around 74 to 77% is the staffing cost. And has it changed drastically for us? I mean, yes, there's a cost of living increase. Yes, there's just a general cost increase, but has that percentage range changed drastically in the last 3 to 5 years?
no, that's pretty accurate. Most districts are generally 70% plus of their budget is personnel costs. We've always been in that same range, 72, 76, 74%. So that's pretty standard. It hasn't changed at all dramatically, no.
Okay, so a community comment last week about like 40% used to be the range 4 years ago is
No way.
just not accurate.
No way.
I mean,
Okay,
labor
thank
costs
you.
for any enterprise like this are going to be far and away the biggest expenditure.
Yeah, particularly in education, we're a labor-intensive industry, and I don't know where we're going to get 40% from now.
Great, and we know special ed has gone up. We also know that the number one key factor for a child's success is an excellent teacher. So thank you.
Okay. Any community comments in the chat?
We do have one question in the chat so far from Mr. Willis. Looks like a multi-part question. We found Mr. Orlando's budget discussion at the last meeting interesting and informative. We have a couple of questions about it. LMSD is experiencing an increase in commercial assessment appeals, which we understand is a national issue facing many, if not most, municipalities and public school districts. First question, have there been any updates since 1/1/25 on the assessed property value decline, which at that time, was about a loss of $43 million, according to Mr. Orlando's pre-budget presentation? And does that number include any decline in residential property assessed values? If not, do you expect any?
So the numbers that were presented was the latest assessment report, which encompasses any type of reduction in assessment. So it could be commercial and residential also. At the last Monday night's board meeting, we did approve 2 settlement stipulations, which were substantial reduction in assessed value, which is not reflected in that number. Once it is processed by the county, which should be next month, we'll revise our information as far as what the assessed value is.
I don't understand this 43 million number that he's asking about. Do you know?
I think what he was talking about, when we had a slide, we started the year, and then we showed there was a decline in from different assessments to the last 6 months.
Okay.
That was on the slide, yeah.
Yeah.
And then also for Mr. Willis, we had assumed, I guess wrongly, that the total federal contribution to LMSD would be much higher than the amount of only 1.87 million, which you budgeted for in 24-25.
Can you repeat that? What did he?
We had assumed that the total federal contribution to the district would be much higher than the amount of only 1.87 million, which you budgeted for in 24-25.
Well, I mean, if you look at
So
all of our total
yeah, I think we're
federal
talking about.
sources, it's like a 1.5,
Right.
1.8%.
So I think he's talking
if you had
about
everything.
Yeah, I think we talked about was the 1.87 is listed under the federal program, which is federal funding. And then I think the question last time was about the IDA money, which is actually administered through MCIU, which is in a different category, which is roughly about 1.9 million on top of the 1.8.
Okay.
And are there other federal revenue sources that might be labeled differently, or is that all federal revenues that LMSD for fiscal year 2025?
Yeah, we just stated what the two
Okay,
differences
will any
are.
possible decrease or elimination of Medicaid funding affect LMSD?
Don't know yet, possibly.
Okay, and then there is a Mr. Zach Garner. My name is Zach Garner from Ardmore. I'm here to advocate for inclusive playgrounds in our district, given the current political instability. Is the board still considering funding a district-wide inclusive playground renovation project? If it's too big a project to take on at this time, I urge the board to fund an inclusive playground renovation this summer at one elementary school, whichever school is the most barrier-free. Thank you. And then from Rebecca Brodsky of Ardmore, of the IT supplies, around 2.2 million, what percentage of that is used to replace devices?
I apologize, I don't know the exact percentage, but we buy new devices for 5th graders and 8th graders. And those are done on a 5-year cycle. Yeah.
I think what she's talking about, so under the 600 is where all your one-to-one devices, so I don't know, out of that 2 million plus, or whatever the number was, what percentage do you spend, and I guess you're talking about your MacBooks and your Macs?
I could do the math and bring that to the next
We
meeting.
can do it to bring it to the
and
next
I could
meeting.
figure
But
out
so
that number.
if they're on a 5-year cycle, you're turning over 20% of them in any given year, right? So, okay.
Oh, is she talking about when they're break, though, and they're replaced? I'm not quite sure what because, I mean, you have lender ones, and sometimes you have ones that have been turned in that are extra, because not every student decides to buy their computer at the end when they graduate, or, yeah.
Correct. Last year, of the 700-ish, we sold about 200. And then we take the other ones and we can recycle them and use them as loaners, or we can sell them and add the money back to the fund balance.
I'm curious, what do we sell the used computers for? What's the price that we sell them?
How much do we sell them for?
Yeah.
I believe this year we're projecting around $450 for the MacBooks based on current estimated value.
I see. Thank you.
And another question from Amanda Cobert in Wynwood. Good morning. I would also like to understand the status of inclusive playgrounds for our elementary schools. Please address.
So this will be part of the capital projects plan, right? Which we'll talk about at upcoming meetings and the capital reserves. So, that can't come out of the bucket of money we're talking about today. Projects like that have to come out of the capital improvement projects fund, which also has to fund the roofs and the buses and other very expensive items. So we're well aware of the community interest. The board is interested in doing that. There are financial realities that we have to address. And so we will look going forward. We don't have dollar amounts on how much these playgrounds are going to cost for playgrounds with the rubber matting and the multi-leveled ramp structures. And with the sensory features and the adaptable swings and all that. So we have an RFP out. We're looking, these could be 500,000, these could be 800,000 a playground based on analogous things that have been done at other schools. We just don't know. Every school is unique. So I think we need to be in an informed position to be able to comment on that. So the next step is to get bids back so we know exactly how much these are actually going to cost, and then we can go from there. All right. So if there's nothing further, any other comments or?
I don't see any other comment.
Okay. So I think we'll adjourn the meeting today and look forward to continuing our discussion on the budget on April 4th. Thank you.